Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Refugee Matters. My name is Isabel Lopez. I'm We're All America's digital organizer and your host for this episode. If this is your first time tuning in, Refugee Matters is a podcast series from We Are All America where we dive deep into the policies, issues, and advocacy efforts that shapes the life of those impacted by displacement. We spotlight the voices and perspective of refugees, asylees, and immigrant leaders working tirelessly to create inclusive and diverse communities where everyone can thrive. And joining me today are three very inspiring women whose work is rooted in making sure that our communities have the resources, support, and opportunities to thrive. They're not just leading important work on the ground, but they're also reshaping the ways we think about resilience, healing, and collective power. I'm very excited to introduce Diana Diaz Madera, the psychotherapist and founder of Corazón Norte, Mufalo Chitam, the executive director of the Maine Immigrant Rights Coalition, and Nura Elmagbari, the co-founder and board director at the Pacific Refugee Support Group. And I'll start us off with a very broad question that lies at the center of this episode, and it's the question of resilience. When we hear the word resilience, what comes to mind for all of you? And what are ways in which you think that this framing is helpful or harmful for our communities?
Sure, and I can get us started. So first of all, thank you, Isabel, for making this happen, and for everybody that tuned in this morning. I think with the word resilience, it just gets thrown out so much in our humanitarian work, especially that we almost wear as a badge of honor, but we don't think about what are we actually being asked to do. You know, it's to take the hits when the system is not changing, when our caseloads are so big. So when I think of resilience, sometimes I just feel like it doesn't really reflect what we think it does. And the reality, how I like to picture is asking people to go out in the middle of a giant storm with an umbrella and telling them, why are you not holding the umbrella correctly? Instead of asking, why are we sending people out in the middle of the storm, in the middle of a hurricane, without any protection, without anything else? So that's my thought when I think about resilience, and how it almost becomes a personal failure if you are not resilient, instead of looking at the systems that are forcing people to be resilient. That may be resettlement systems, it may be even in our communities, how we expect communities to be a resilient community, versus seeing what are some things in which our communities can just be, and be healed, and just continue to grow.
From my perspective, there's definitely two sides to the resilience coin. For me, it's become a term that actually resonates negatively because in the refugee community, in the asylum-seeking and immigrant community, because when I think of resilience, we're congratulated for being resilient, and good job for surviving, good job for not dying in that war, good job for walking 80 miles or 800 miles to cross a border. When in reality, when we look at resilience, it should be something we're taught as, oh, don't give up. For example, if you do bad on a test, you keep going, you study harder, you build resilience. So when resilience is taught as a skill and as a tool we use to continue to improve in our lives, it's wonderful. But when resilience is something that is forced upon us as a tool for survival, that's when it becomes something that actually affects us negatively. We see this a lot in the refugee community. The first 6 months, you see them, families, they're doing great. They have a lot of energy. They're excited for their new lives. And then about the 6-month mark, that resilience fades away, and they start feeling the heaviness of leaving their families, their countries behind, and living in a new world that they don't recognize. So I see it as a two-sided coin, where when we expect people to be resilient without giving them the tools or the skills to use that resilience in a positive way rather than just as a survival mechanism, then it's affecting our health and our ability to thrive. But when we teach resilience as a tool for building success, for thriving in a community, then that's something I think that can be seen in the positive light.
And I thank you both. Thank you, Isabel. It's great to be able to have this conversation, and I think it's a timely conversation for us, especially in this moment. I say this very, when we were getting ready for the new administration, I remember, meeting up and with, very good partners that we work with who help us with, you know, just healing and, finding yourself. And so this organization, we had this very great plan of like, we've gone through the election and we need to, heal. And I was like, we need to heal. I mean, we needed to heal. And we had this very nice plan of, we like, come 20th, we're going to do this week. I mean, it was a great plan. January 20th came and the plan just became obsolete. So when you fast forward to now, and I get asked all the time, how are you doing? I've been saying I'm doing, because I'm being asked of that same piece of like, oh, you will be fine. 8 months later, I am still doing. So in this moment, when you ask me about resilience, there's a suppressed anger that just comes up because I don't feel resilient. I don't even want the word. And my partners have been trying to like, oh, check up on me, like me, because I can't even look at that plan because it's asking me to be resilient. I don't have the privilege to be resilient. When you think of the definition itself that says you need to spring back into shape, what shape am I springing back into? And then, I mean, so I just run away from the word. I don't even want it in this moment. I don't want, because 2 days in the word, I'm like, yeah, I think I will be resilient. Then the next day I'm not. Then I'm like, no, I just don't even want it. So, I look at this too, especially now that, you know, it's almost that piece of like expecting, like, oh, we will be fine. I say that we will be fine. But in this moment, now I want to be resilient. I just want to be in the moment. So, I can go on because I get this suppressed anger that comes out because it's asking me to be okay when I'm not okay. The external landscape is not okay. My community is not okay. My people, I'm not okay. So I want to be resilient.
And I think to that, Mufalo, I can add how our communities have been resilient for years, for decades, before even coming to the United States of America. And it's that state of being in survival and of having to endure trauma. Then when I feel we talk about resiliency, in a way it's like how is that different from what we have already been enduring and what we have already been going through. And it was Diana, actually, you made me realize how the language of resiliency, it helps us normalize the systemic violence and the traumatic impacts that we go through. And you said something very insightful when we had that first conversation. So we want to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you, Mufalo. The resilient, and as part of the resilient, I don't want to be resilient. I want to just be, right? And yes, Isa, we talked about these because it's such a thing that we are asked, and it brings me back to this story about when I was in grad school, like over 10 years ago, and this very well-meaning professor was trying to tell us what the word resilience is. And it was the closing of the semester, it was one of the practicums ones. And she gifted every single one of us these little dolls. They're called roly-polies. I didn't even know that was the word, but like, you keep moving and they keep coming back up. And she said to us, like a very good closing, like, I want you guys to remember to continue to build resilient communities when you go out in the workforce. And I still remember the chills. What's more, I just got them right now. I was like, what? But we've been resilient. Like, we are like in the middle of South Central. We have, I came from a community in which that's the only thing that we were allowed to be or expected to be. So it always stayed with me. And over the years, and the more that I work in the humanitarian sector, it really stuck to me that it's just like we keep asking of our folks or our people that survived to be that, and we get praised on it. And it's really, frustrating, and I like to bring light to that. And when I think about our communities, for example, what's happening right now, when we know that immigrant kids and families are being separated. And this is not new. This has been happening for years and years. It's just we see it more right now, and there's more TV, but we know that kids that have been separated from their parents are almost 3 times more likely to develop PTSD symptoms. We know that they're almost 5 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts. And now we are asking the same kids, the same communities, and the parents and the providers that are serving them say, yeah, good job, you are surviving all these, but it does not, resilience does not equal well-being. And I think that's something that we need to take into consideration.
I think it's also super important to remember that with resilience, they put all of the onus on the person rather than looking at the system. And a lot of the times the word resilience is used to justify suffering. And it also shifts responsibility from the causes of the resilience or causes for the need for resilience. And so we need to once again look at the bigger systematic problem that we have in this country and around the world, and many countries around the world, is why are these people, especially when you're talking about children, they are forced to be in these situations. No one chooses to flee their country or their homeland or leave their families behind or their careers behind. We are forced to do that. I was forced to do that. And so when we keep saying, oh, good job, like Deanna said, you're resilient. Actually, no, I was forced into this survival mode because of you. And so it is a word, I believe, created, maybe with good intentions in the beginning, but a lot of the times we're shifting the blame to the victim, those of us who are forced to flee or become refugees or asylum seekers, rather than putting the responsibility on those who caused it. And then obviously justifying the suffering like, oh, we're not going to change anything, so just deal with it. Or, we're expected to endure without complaining, right? The other thing is resilience is extremely emotionally invalidating. Like, I'm not allowed to feel scared, or I'm not allowed to feel hurt. I'm not allowed to feel trauma or burnout, or what my real limitations are, because I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to survive. And then it's just the overall glorification of enduring, right? We're like, wow, great job. We're made to feel like put on a pedestal because we survived. Some of us just got lucky, where it's the circumstances in which we happen to fall into. And so we need to start shifting the narrative and the language around why we use the word resilience so much when it comes to actually surviving. It's a survival mechanism that if we didn't do what we
I want to add something here. What I'm experiencing now is the longer prolonged, what we're going through right now with all the changes, the harder it is for us to stay within that discomfort, that we find ourselves in spaces where, like life has to go on. So when that happens, you start seeing these, trendy words around resilience that comes up, and I've been very, very, I've just been very attentive to that, and it's my suppressed anger that just comes quickly, because I'm just like, no, don't push me into that corner so that you can be okay. So you want me to be okay so I can be okay. So you're going to start this whole thing. And I really I'm moving at this speed of like, it's not even speed of trust, it's speed of like resistance, of like, we are all going to be uncomfortable. This what we're going through is uncomfortable. it is painful, it is mean, it is angry, like it's everything. And we will sit into that, because if you jump out, I remain by myself, then I'm being asked, you'll be okay because we've all moved on, So I'm very, very conscious around now in terms of how we are moving around being resilient, because we, and I say this especially coming from a community that's very diverse. And you see, I get these phone calls from people who are like impacted now. Then the ones who are not impacted are calling me, whoa, come to a party. I'm like, so you see those pieces of where like, oh, they're okay. They're not okay. So you need to be okay. So I think in this time, it's calling for all of us, because, and I say this too, that you're not affected directly, you're affected indirectly. So if you're affected, then it means we're all affected. So nobody's jumping out of this sport faster. We're all going to be in this sport as long as it's growing. And so I think it's important for us, as especially people who are providing the services, whether you're an advocate or doing direct services, for us to be very aware of who's moving faster to be okay, so that we get to be okay. But as long as we're still going through this administration, we have to tread carefully around this resilience word.
And going back to one of your earlier points, Mufalo, when you were talking about all of the plans and preparations that all of us and our organizations had in the lead up to the presidential election and what came afterwards. And we have just seen attack after attack after attack on our communities. Asylum is dismantled, refugee resettlement is, for all intents and purposes, stopped as well. We're seeing mass detentions every day. We're seeing, and we can't get an escape from it, even if it's on our work, on our social media, dinner time conversations with family and friends. It really is an all-encompassing crisis that we're facing. And what do you guys have to say to the idea of how do we tell people to go on to survive, also when they come for us for support, without falling into this trap of resiliency? How can we create a space for that wholeness in folks when we know that we've had 7 months, we have 3 more years to go of this?
I think the biggest thing that we need to remember is this is just one more piece of the puzzle of the breaking down of white supremacy. And when we it's just another trick, or it's not even, it's just a theatrical kind of a thing, like one more effort to keep power where the people who have power want to keep it. And so I do think it's breaking down. That system, the system of white supremacy is starting to crack and fail, because you no longer can hide what's happening. You no longer can avoid the truth when it's being live streamed, when we see what's happening in our communities. And we have refugees, immigrants, asylum seekers that are scared to death, that are hiding in their homes, hiding in their friends' homes, and coming to us saying, what do I do? And the best advice I can give them at the point, because we're at the survival mode, right, is don't open your doors. Do not open that door, and giving them the tips and tricks and whatever laws are available to protect them. And then even then, we are seeing they're showing up at schools and at daycares in any way possible to take away these quote unquote criminals, when they're simply people who are trying to live. They're trying to thrive. They're trying to build a new life, because whatever it was that happened in their previous lives sent them here. When we are sitting at our tables with our friends, with our community, from my perspective, the word resilience never comes up, because at that point it's just a bad word. It's a slap in the face. We are not about being resilient right now. We are in order to feel a semblance of safety, of trust. So even if it's at around a dinner table, I want to make sure that the community that I am sharing dinner with or conversation with knows that they are safe with me. And that in and of itself is so empowering to our communities that are struggling through this right now. So there's a lot that could be said about this, but when it comes to building community, when it comes to building our tribes, the essence, the foundation is trust, and making sure that we who are doing this work and are in the community are able to protect as much as possible those that we are serving. Our community members are hurting. They are scared. They don't know what to do. So for those of us who have even the smallest bit of power or authority of any kind, to offer whatever help we can, whether it's mental health, whether it's food, whether it's allowing you to spend the night in my home just to make sure you feel a little safe. I think that's what we need to do in the conversations we need to have in our communities in order to make the people that we serve feel a little bit safe, and just not even mention the word resilience. Because as Mufalo said, and as Deanna said, it's not the time. Right now, we're just doing and trying to survive in the process.
I agree with that. I definitely think that community is one of the solutions. I also know that there's two different pieces out of these. We still need services, and we know we're getting defunded. We know that programs are getting cut. So that's a complete different other story, which we really do need philanthropy to step in. I really think that once this administration hopefully moves on, there's a really good opportunity actually for the humanitarian field to have a reset of how we have been doing things. Even before things were being defunded, I believe that our humanitarian workers had been also being asked to be resilient consistently, to do the most with almost zero resources. So there's a point there in which we can be using a framework of well-being as prevented, not reactive, right? Not bouncing back, but actually doing things that when we're building these systems, we're building into manageable caseloads, we're doing predictable rest periods, we're also doing transparent decision makings within nonprofits that are doing this work, and we're building in mental health support. That's one piece. The other piece, definitely, like Nura said, community, tangible supports that we need right now. I definitely don't need somebody to praise my resilience. I need somebody to say, hey, can you pick up my kids from school? Or, even the phrase, I'm holding space. What does that mean? What does that actually mean? Like, if you're holding a space, can you do me around with the grocery store, or do you just mean like, oh, let me know if you need something, right? So those things. And the last one, I think for me also is something that maybe an unpopular opinion, but it's okay to take breaks out of this work. Like, we think that we're never told that, and we feel it deeply because this is personal work. But at some point, we also deserve the care that we give other folks. And if that means that you need to walk out of these positions for a year, for 2 years, to take a sabbatical, to do something else, to replenish yourself, it is okay. There's no badge of honor that you get for just running yourself to the ground in here. You can still be involved in the community in different capacities as well.
And what thank you both for really speaking about community. And I've been saying this now, it's going to be my tagline. Community is going to be our superpower in this time. But the question is, what is community? Because when you say community, we're like, oh no, it was very like ethnic, very, traditional, very, we, in Maine are really having to redefine what that means. We have community as in, just, and I've said, people are calling, what can we do? What do you need us to do? What, I just said, we're going to do mindless things at community level, like mindless things, because the system above us has failed us. So when that system falters, it is grassroots that does unite. So in that moment, I tell folks, I was in my office one day, and I've been telling this story too. We have just mainstream activists. They started this every Thursday. They'll walk down, go in downtown with signs and sing and call out everything they can call out that I can't even call out without being a target. And I was in my office and I saw all these people with signs that I could not put up. And they went, there was a lot of them, 2, 3 hours later, I started seeing them coming back. They had coffee, they were drinking, they were, eating donuts. They blended back into community. I was like, that is the community. That's a community that's going to stand out there and say everything that I can say. So that's a community that will, in this moment, work with me and hold me in this time, whilst I'm looking at the next family that's being picked up, when I'm looking at teaching the next family, where to get their food stamps, where to get, how to take their kids to school. So we have to really think what community in this moment. And I say this too, that you never heal from pain, from brokenness. You just you relearn how to live with that pain. So we will live with this. So in the relearning, what does that look like? Folks wanting to, like, yeah, come on, can I buy food? Can I do something? I'm like, bring me coffee, bring in tea. Like, when you think about me, just come to my office and drop something. It is going to be the little mindless things that unite us really at grassroots, because the system above us has failed. We used to run to the system. The traditional advocacy is not working because it is being challenged by a system above us. So if that's not working, then we go back to the grassroots and then start building from the ground up. And so we really need to hone into that person that you never talk to. We had this session, and somebody said we need to go and speak to people who are angry with us. We need to find out, why are you angry? So that's a whole different grassroots. Come to my kitchen and let's find out, why are you angry? Like, why are you angry that I'm here? What did I take that was yours? Did I take anything that was yours, or did I just build myself to be able to survive, and I got something that you thought I took was yours? No, I just built something that you didn't build. And so now you feel angry because you didn't build that stamina. I built it because I needed to survive. And so we really have to hone into this community, really our grassroots, doing mindless things. That I say, people, do mindless things. Bring me coffee.
I hear a really good point about just what does it mean to show up, to be a good villager to your village. So it's not just let me know if you need something. It's actually, I know what you're going through. I know I can make this little thing to make your day just that 1% easier. Um, and I think for a lot of us, from immigrants and refugee backgrounds, it's easy to think about the ways that we can step up for each other, because that's what we've done. That's how our cultures are, and these are the networks that we try to replicate here in America to find community and find support. But I think there's a like, I think it's easy to be a good villager, but I think some of us still struggle in how do we let our villages know when we need them to step up for us as well. And I think it comes back to, again, these internalized narratives that we have around how we need to be resilient, we need to be strong, we need to keep going. And we carry so much pressure on our backs to provide for ourselves, to provide for our families, and to even just to be okay at the end of the day, to be able to go to sleep and wake up the next day and go through everything all over again. And maybe you guys can share some tools around a recognizing your own signs, and b, how can we tell that to the people around us? What's some of the language we can use so that we can let our community and our people know, especially in these times. Like, I don't want to be resilient, I don't want to be carrying all of this. I can't do it alone, and I need you to be there with me and helping me through this.
Excellent question, Isabella. So I don't know a lot about like, I almost feel like the rest of the world almost has similar culture. The United States and Europe has just really transgressed in terms of, what it means to be family and community. It's such an individualistic society that we live in. And I was raised not to ask for help. I was raised not to bother the neighbors unless we were doing something for them. And so I think a lot of the communities that we currently serve still keep that mentality, whether sometimes it's just pride, like, or machismo, or I'm not going to ask for help, I can do it by myself, to burden others with our burdens. And so what we do is we actively encourage our communities to come seek help by offering that help. Do you need help with groceries? Do you need help with your kids going to school, summer camp, whatever? Here is what we're offering. This is for you. Please do not hesitate. We know it's an uncomfortable ask. We send personal emails. We make personal phone calls. And then we just do. We show up with groceries. We show up with clothes. We show up with backpacks filled with school supplies. And a lot of the times, some families will flat out say, "I'm on my way. I don't need it." And the kids kind of looking at us like, no, I do need it. And so we do a lot of work with the youth because they're that wonderful in between that is able to feel okay asking for help when the parents are not. So it's not an easy thing. And community work and community building is based on trust, and trust takes time. And it's hard for me to show up driving a car that might be able to house, take 7 people, when the family I'm serving might have 3 generations living together, maybe up to 15 children in one house, and they don't even have a car. And I'm expecting them to, why aren't you taking your kids to school? Or why aren't you able to go do this, run this errand, or pay this bill? So it comes us, it's a lot of burden on us. It's a very heavy weight on our shoulders. But community means creating, in my opinion, a network that not only encourages people to help, but also encourages people to take the help that we are offering so that we feel safe among each other. And the hard part is, how do you do that? For me, it's been a slow, trust building process that has failed multiple times on multiple levels, but we don't give up. And that not giving up is not because of resilience. That not giving up is because we understand the need and we understand the urgency that many of these families are feeling. And so we just look for different avenues and different ways to communicate and connect to community members that we are trying to serve. And this in itself could be like 3 podcasts, but I think at the end of the day, trust building is really, really important. And it's a slow process. So do not put anyone that's doing this work, please give yourselves grace. Do not put the pressure of the world on your shoulders. Like Deanna said, we've never been given permission to rest. We're expected to run, and endure. And that's not fair. We're human too. We need to take care of ourselves and give ourselves grace and forgive ourselves when something that we work hard on and expect to go a certain way doesn't. Just know that your intentions were good. You tried your best practices, evidence-based, whatever. Sometimes that doesn't work, especially with communities that are new to this country.
I agree with everything Nura was saying, especially I think for us in the humanitarian sector, we have always been trained to run towards where the fires are and be the helpers and be the ones that are first in the line to do anything possible for our community. But why can we not extend the same for us, right? To what is our network and who is our community, and pre-identifying that. I'll tell you something funny that I have this word with my 2 closest friends, that if one of us just sends a text to the group message that says cafecito, we just know. I just mean coffee, something went down, or like you have hit your limit, and we either, if we are in town, we meet to see each other and have coffee, or we send each other a coffee, or whatever it is, but we just know. So having those trusted, even if it's just one person, even if it's your partner, your sister, anybody that you have, that you can have that with them. And also, being able to receive the help is hard. It's not an easy process, but we have to understand we're not superhuman, and that those that we care for would like us to be also cared for. And I think that's something that we should also try to keep in mind, and not judge ourselves. Often we say, well, the people I work with or my community has it a lot worse, so how can I even complain? How can I even be sad? No, yeah, you can be sad. We can all be sad. You're human. There's nothing about you that has like a super extra power. You can be sad, and it's okay to ask for help. And I think process that is difficult, but also knowing your window of tolerance. When we are in therapy, we have like this chart that's color coded, right? Like if you're in the blue, you're like hardly functioning, you're not even like paying attention, you're so down that it's just disconnected. If you are in the red, you're like hyper arousal. And then you ideally want to stay in the green, where you know that you are functioning fairly well. But I feel like between the green and the red, there should be an orange, because all of us are probably likely there most of the time. But it's when you recognize where are you there and what are your stress behaviors, then you can actually have something to soothe it. So for me, I absolutely know if I'm driving myself to a bakery, I know I have hit that red spot, right? I know I need cake. I have had it. So knowing those behaviors, I can know how I can stop, or how to reach out to my network. Yeah, hopefully that helps.
Thank you. With trying to think of, I'm in this point of where I'm also resisting and telling people this is what we do for you to be okay. So, Isabella, that question is like, gets me to like, no, I want to teach anyone, what's working, there are no best practices. Somebody's like, what are the best practices? I'm like, really? And like in this moment. So, I think outside from when we're talking about community, we come from a state that has, the diversity in terms of arts. At the times when we have to, during COVID, we used to translate material that we call in primary languages and secondary languages. So primary languages were about 17 to 21. And then, secondary languages, primary languages would be like, 7 to 9. So that is communities that, learn and come and live within their culture. So there's cultures on top of cultures. And so in this moment where, we are not one thing, so it's very challenging right now for you to come up with one solution, because you have communities within communities. So it's very important to work with communities that there's trust that's built around certain communities. And it's important not in this moment to just say, well, it's just one thing and you're going to be fine. And so this is why this part about, what can you do that can help? This could work in this one community because they speak the same language, the same culture, or they're from the same religion. They won't work into another community. So it's important for us to, and it's also okay to be okay with the differences in those communities. We've been able to navigate. It's not easy, it's challenging, but it's important to respect, whatever is happening in this community. Doesn't make this community better than the other community, or doesn't make this right and wrong in another community. It's just different in this community. So to be able to build, work and support systems within the same community, the same language. I talk about how certain things, people are culturalized in a certain way. They're culturalized, in a certain language. Use that, in this moment. Where we fall back on is our culture, what we know, what we've been, what we grew up in, saying and believing, and that is comfort. When you're thinking of comfort food, also the culture in this moment of resilience is your comfort. So and I speak to different communities, make sure you are with somebody that speaks your language, that knows your food, because in this moment, that's where your safety is, that's where your trust is. So being able to still I recognize those spaces and not wanting to break everyone and put them into this one bucket. And so respect within those communities is important, but also the trust, so as advocates, to be able to be mindful about that and not wanting to put everybody into this one bucket. I say also that when people are coming here, refuge used to be like, oh, find them a job, or get them a house, or find them, get the kids into school. Right now, refuge is different. It just feels like, can we speak in my language? Can I just feel safe? So we're redefining what refuge looks like in this United States, because we came from countries where we're running away from war, running away from famine, and then running away from authoritarian rules, and then here we find ourselves into that space. So where do we run to? We run to the people that speak your language, eat your food, and just in that one moment, that's where your safety feels like.
We're approaching the end of our time together, and this has been such a great and insightful conversation. We have gone all the way from saying, okay, there's a problem with resilience in our communities and how we're talking about our communities, built to break, like the title of this episode. How do we stop actually from breaking? Community. The answer lies in community. And how do we build these communities? It comes down to trust and safety. Very, very basic things. So with the last 5 minutes we have left, Mufalo, Nura, and Diana, I'd love to ask, what are some, just any reflections that you want to share with our audience on what has helped you cultivate that safety and trust, at an individual level with yourself, and then with others around you, that folks can take that back.
That's such a great question, because there is no specific time in my life where I was just like, oh, I feel safe now, or I know exactly what to do, because it's ever changing. I do know for me, the Pacific Refugee Support Group came out of necessity. And it was watching this influx of Syrian refugees in 2016 falling through the safety nets that were set up by the system that was meant to protect them, but was actually setting them up for failure. And that's when I learned, even though I came to this country basically as a refugee, and it was political, the cause was political. I remember nobody helping my parents. I remember seeing my parents struggle. I remember seeing them not being able to speak the language. But one thing that was expected of us was that we would assimilate into American culture. And thank goodness that my parents refused to allow that to happen. We kept our culture, we kept our language, we learned how to cook our foods, we learned the stories of our people. And so with Pacific Refugee Support Group, if I learned I took what I learned through my experiences and said, please do not assimilate to the United States, acclimate. Learn how to live here while keeping your identity whole. And that, when I learned how important that was, and I learned how important it was to share and encourage people to keep their identities, and that would make them feel something. They wouldn't feel completely lost in a new country, that at least they had themselves, their culture, their faith, their foods, which is so important. People undergrade how important food is to culture and to communities and to families. but encouraging people. And I learned to be proud and love myself for who I was and be proud of my identity, and encouraging others to feel the same. It kept this sense of being that really became my guiding light, and encouraged others to use as their guiding light as they completed their journey or continued on their journey here in the United States, wherever it may lead them. And so for me, it's, it's about, like I said, that strength of community, and that building that self-love, and that maintaining of hope within me as a person and who we are, and encouraging others to feel the same, so that we're not completely lost in this new world that we live in.
That was beautiful, Nura. 100% agree. And I wanted to share a quote, and it might be a little cheesy, but it helped me like maybe 10 to 12 years ago. I heard it, and it's the one that goes, I hope you find someone who speaks your language so you don't have to spend a lifetime translating your soul. And that, even though that was for like a partner situation, I'm guessing whoever wrote that quote, I helped me translate that to everywhere that I go, with friends, with workplaces. I just to be okay with who I am, and being able to be in spaces and admit when some spaces are no longer working for you and walking away from them, and being in places where you don't have to translate your soul. And I think that helped me a lot, and it has also helped me create spaces where people also can feel that way, and they can join when it's good for them, and then when it's needed, and in the times that they feel that that's the right fit for them. So that has helped me. I know it's a little bit of a cheesy quote, but it has lasted for many, many years in my head. So
I think for me, in 2024, I had an opportunity through our board, given to me to go on sabbatical. And that was eye-opening, but it was also so fulfilling in terms of very cathartic. I think what I came back from that sabbatical saying, this work is tough, this whole keep going is really tough, but it's us from within without knowing. And so my time away really, was able to make me just reconnect with just being okay with just not being okay. And so it is important to just be not okay and not to be apologetic for it. How we, again, pieces of how we go around in this work, in this platform in 2025, it's very different from how we were able to survive, post and before this year. And so we are going to be recreating newer ways of being okay and newer ways of doing things. And we should be in the driving seat, around that, because we own our work and we own our lives. And so when you're just not okay, just say I'm not okay. And I find myself just being okay by not being okay and not being apologetic. And so to family, and I do agree with, I say this to in my language, there's a quote that says, meaning your pain is felt by the person feeling the pain. So we'll never be able to explain the pain we're going through, because we're the ones experiencing that. But because of that, it'd be very hard to even, for somebody who doesn't even have any connections of of what these policies are doing, to feel our pain. So it's our pain. And so because it's our pain, we own it, but we can't be apologetic about it. So I hope that people can be okay by not being okay.
I think that should be, I wish that could have been the title for the episode. Being okay by not being okay. That was a great way to end things. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom and your perspectives on this really important topic for not just our communities, but for allies and other advocates that work in the movement, and helping us think of the language that we use. And I know we have a lot of people following us online, watching the conversation live. If you have any questions or comments that you would like to hear Diana, Mufalo's, or Nura's perspective on, now's the time to hear from you, to help you shape this conversation. Seeing some love from the quote that you shared in the chat, Diana. It was very beautiful. I will for sure be having it on a sticky note next to the mirror where I have all of my affirmations in the mornings.
That quote was absolutely beautiful. I agree with you 100% that I think it just literally encompasses every emotion I've ever had about being different and not wanting to lose myself. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you all three for your time, for joining us on this episode. Thank you to everyone who joined us to watch. You will be able to get a replay of this, and we'll be publishing the episode on YouTube for other folks to watch as well. So if you're seeing this from the future, let us know what you liked most. Let us know what resonated with you, and any bit of peace that you took from this episode. Have a great day.
Thank you.